Hey, Adam,
Jeez,
one
why,
thing.
why do you think they called bumpers, Gary?
I don't know.
Because they come at the beginning, at the end, like bumpers.
Alex, you're a marketing guy. Do you like that design behind Paul? Does that sweet logo thing look pretty cool to you?
Hey, I forgot to hit the record button.
Yeah, that's really professional, isn't it?
Well, this is a professional podcast.
I met her in a parking lot and was handed 2 little Yorkies. And the only person I knew that knew Yorkies was Paul. So I called Paul and said, Paul.
Sweet Talk is a weekly 20-minute podcast brought to you by the Continuing Education and Workforce Training Division of Idaho State University's College of Technology. Find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and SoundCloud and subscribe today. Now it's time to get started with Sweet Talk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sweet Talk, our weekly podcast here at Idaho State University's Continuing Education and Workforce Training. I am Paul Dickey, the Video Instruction Manager and Apprenticeship Coordinator here at Sweet. And as always, joining me is my co-host, Angie Wilhelm, our Marketing Director. Angie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. As our normal everyday viewers can see, it doesn't look like we have a guest, but we do. Many of you have seen RaeLyn on our podcast before, and you may have seen our Goodbye Gary podcast go out recently. Right now, we would like to introduce RaeLyn as our Interim Director and give everyone who is not familiar with her an opportunity to learn more about RaeLyn. So welcome, RaeLyn. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
You betcha, Angie. I'm so excited to be on here. We were talking earlier before the podcast started that I've not been on here as a guest before, so this is kind of exciting for me. But yeah, my background, as far as my work background and my education, my initial education was as a nurse. So since I was a child, I always knew that I wanted to be a nurse. My mom was a nurse, and I really looked up to her, and I was always very impressed with what she was able to do and to be as a nurse. And so that's what I always wanted to be. And so just immediately after high school, since I knew exactly what I was going to do, 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I started on my nursing education journey and just kind of plowed through it pretty fast to hit my goal. And so that's kind of where that started. The rest of my career kind of has moved through the years. My education, as far as wanting to, I guess, recognizing the power of education, actually started with the birth of my first baby, which is kind of interesting. I was working as a nurse, and the other nurses in my department suggested that I take a Lamaze class. And I thought, why do I need a Lamaze class? I'm a nurse. I know everything there is to know about labor and delivery, right? In my naivety and young, I guess being a young nurse. And so I kind of reluctantly joined this Lamaze class and drug my husband along. I thought, well, this will be really good for him. I might not learn very much, but it'll be good for him. And so we took this Lamaze class, and lo and behold, I realized the power of what education can do as I went through my own birth experience with my daughter. And that's kind of where the spark, I guess, opened up for me as far as the power of changing somebody's life and setting somebody on a new trajectory. So from that point on, I decided I'm going to become a Lamaze instructor, a certified Lamaze instructor. So I hit that goal and started to educate people and saw lives transform, right? I mean, for that short period of time, you could give people tools and help them to in their experiences that they're having. So that's kind of where my beginnings in nursing and education started.
So then how did you come to Sweet?
Okay, that is a very good question as well. So I had worked at Portneuf for many years, and took a little bit of time off to take care of my kids. And then I was at a point in time in my life that I was ready and open to doing something new. I had taught some CNA classes before, and my mom, who has always, I've always looked up to my mom. She was teaching, or had taught, I guess, at ISU. At that point in time, she wasn't teaching CNA classes, but she suggested that maybe that would be a good fit for me, was to come and to just teach a few classes here and there. And I thought, that's really of interest to me. So I contacted Cheryl Den Hartog at the time and asked her if there would be an opportunity for me to come and teach. And so I taught some CNA and some assistance with medications courses. So that's kind of what brought me here. And then just, as with life, one thing leads to the next, progression. And I came in as her health, I guess kind of what Alicia does, the health leads instructor and assistant in her office, and then became the health programs coordinator. And then, had the opportunity to really work with the SWEET team, which was amazing, coming in from an instructor perspective and having the support, seeing that what the SWEET team can do to support and to create programs is pretty amazing. But then having the opportunity to work with all of our SWEET team has been amazing. We have a group, a very tight-knit group team that works well together, supports each other in their own areas of expertise. So that was amazing for me. And so that just kind of led to when Gary was saying his goodbyes and taking his new position, I was approached with the opportunity to become the interim director. And I said yes, because I wanted to work with our SWEET team in a little bit different way. So that's kind of what has brought me to this journey.
Well, I remember the first time I ever met you, RaeLyn. It was it was a Monday morning, and I was unlocking my door. And
Yes.
this person I had never met is walking up to me and asking me for things. Something about your Moodle class. I need this for my Moodle class, which starts today in an hour. And I'm like, what?
Well, for some reason, there was no test in my Moodle class. And this was my first experience, and then trying to have a test for my students that was supposed to be on there. Yes, that was a bad day.
Yeah, I just
around the block.
Who are you and why are you asking me something at first thing in the morning? I think I was polite, but I was very much like, why is this person me asking something last minute? And then we had a conversation, and Cheryl at the time, who was the head of the health programs, came in, and she just explained what was going on and says, oh yeah, give me 5 minutes. And I will have that ready. And
well, actually, I think that day something was wrong in the class. We couldn't open the test. So I found a written test, and I was in there just madly copying this written test to be able to give out first day. So that was super awesome,
Oh, it was.
All those learning experiences, right?
Yeah, but as you've taken over the health programs and we've worked together, I think we worked really well. I've always been very concerned about your needs, and you've been very patient with me on my timelines and so forth. And I've always appreciated that.
Oh, I appreciate that, Paul. I mean, I just felt like I have felt nothing but supported in all of the roles I've had in our SWEET, with our SWEET team. I mean, it's not very often that you find a place that really you have the potential to make an impact for good in people's lives. And I really feel like that's something that we can do, and we do here at SWEET. we help people to find their path, right? To find their course. Just like I've kind of had my weaving course, my trajectory, that one thing has led to another, my pathway. Angie has had probably the same thing in her career, and Paul. And it's helping people to find their passions. You know, what are they good at? What is their passion? And really, SWEET gives people that opportunity in a really, in a way that they don't have to invest a whole lot in order to find out if this is the right fit for them.
I think you're right. I think with our department, we have basically alternate career options that sometimes people don't find till even later in life. And that's the one of the benefits is we get to see people who make these decisions who may not have, had a career path. They've just had jobs. And then we have that opportunity to provide them a career path. I know in my apprenticeship program, I'm getting younger people nowadays, but for many years, I was getting people in their late 20s, early 30s who had not found a place, and they've entered into the apprenticeship and on their way to become professionals in the plumbing, HVAC, and electrical trade. And then they kind of find themselves later in life, which is always great because then you can see them transform, because there's such a difference between a job and a career.
That's so very true.
With a career, people have a feeling of stability, and also they have a feeling of that accomplishment and that they're providing for their families. And I've seen that transformation. Again, you get some people that they start, and education, especially later in life, can be difficult for people. Because they're so far removed from when they, from the years that they were taking, say, high school, and then now here they're plunged into education, and they're not used to the studying, they're not used to tests, and sometimes they just need some guidance on how to accomplish that successfully.
That's true.
Okay.
I'd
like to add to what Paul had said. Many of our regular listeners may not be as familiar with what we do in our department, because we're typically bringing in other people as guests. So that our department particularly focuses on the non-credit side of university offerings. So these are Paul's apprenticeship classes, as RaeLyn was speaking about as well. Those could be CNA, phlebotomy, EMT programs. They are non-credit classes that either lead to a pathway into further education, or can be standalone careers themselves without the high cost of what someone would consider like a traditional education. So it gives people a skill quickly, cheaply, affordably, and also gives pathways to a traditional education if they so choose. So when you're listening to Paul and RaeLyn speak about our programs, that's kind of what they're speaking about for those of you who might just be tuning in or listen to our podcasts regularly but haven't quite figured out who we are.
I appreciate that, Angie. And that's so very true. You take somebody who hasn't ever been on a college campus, and that can be really scary. And so I feel like, when you come to SWEET, it gives people an opportunity to be here on campus, to be learning in a very non-threatening way, and opportunity for their careers, right? To start a new career, or to upskill their current skills that they have. You talked about all the different things that we have. We have everything from career type courses to get people started on that pathway, to personal development, learning new skills, upskilling, even hobbies, so we really do provide so many opportunities for people for their training and for their growth.
I mean, that's true, because not only do we have the career path, but we also have just the community classes that people can enrich their, personal lives. Like the cooking classes, the dancing classes, what we call the fun classes.
Absolutely.
So I have a question to redirect this back.
Okay.
Because it's so fun to talk about our department as well. This gives us it gives people an overall view of who we are if they haven't, if they're listening to our community interviews, etc. But there's one thing I'd like to ask RaeLyn, as people take over different organizations, as there's leadership changes, sometimes there's also goal changes. Can you talk a little bit about the goals that you have for SWEET?
You betcha. And I can't say that there are differences in the goals, because I think our goals are just moving things forward, right?
Mhm.
I would love for people, when they think about training needs that they might have, I would like them to think, oh yes, ISU SWEET, that's where I can go to be able to meet those needs. That's, the other thing that I have really loved, both in my position as health programs coordinator and now as the interim, is the ability to reach and to come up with innovative solutions for people for their training. Whether that might be in one of our rural areas, where it might be difficult to provide that training, coming up with solutions to where we can meet those needs. Maybe we have just one or two people. How can we get those people trained to where it's not going to break their bank and we can still be able to affordably give that training? So I think that my goal with SWEET is just to be able to grow in our ability to be able to get that reach to all of those who need to be trained, because that's what we're about here. We're about that short-term training, helping it to be affordable, easily accessible for people. So I guess those would be my major goals.
So I want to touch on something you just said about accessibility, especially to rural areas. Paul did something very, very innovative years ago, and that was due to the nature of where we live. So Paul is our apprenticeship coordinator. He is over our HVAC, plumbing, and electrical apprenticeships. Many of the men and women in this program work in rural areas, and that made it a little bit difficult for them to get back to the university to take classes. So Paul, years ago, he found this little program called Zoom that he started pushing the classes out on. And that gave our rural persons access to classes online. And I'd like to make note that this was long before COVID.
Yes.
And that made the COVID transition very easy for those programs.
So yes, Angie, years ago, we do have people who are much further away and cannot make it to a class. And we're charged with teaching the didactic portion of their apprenticeship. So we don't do the hands-on. That's the hands-on's provided by their employers. So we don't have any labs, again, hands-on by employers. But we noticed that we were having a lot of absentees because, again, they're working full-time jobs during the day, and they would sometimes find it difficult to even make that transition from work to school. Others are just down in the southern portion of the state, in miles that they cannot make it to the class. Also, it was a burden for their employers because they go, oh, I guess you have to leave early today to make it to school. So we started this streaming out the lectures through Zoom before anyone knew what Zoom was. So we had to do some research to try to find out what platform we could use to stream this out. We had to make some investment in equipment to both the instructors and to the rooms that we were providing the instructors for, because there was blended classes where we had face-to-face classrooms, but we were also streaming out the lectures. So we had this in place a year before COVID. Actually 2 years before COVID, because we piloted one class and then we transitioned to the rest of the classes the next year. So when COVID happened and there was a shutdown, we just said, okay, I guess we just won't have the face-to-face of the class and we'll just go completely online. And so I do know that some of my counterparts in the other colleges had to cut their programs short because of COVID, and we just continued and we were able to complete that year. But yeah, so yes, and we started this innovation at kind of a request of recording by the instructor for the math portion. How do we record that and get that out? So we said, oh, let's do it this way. And then later on, Gary and I talked about, hey, maybe this is something that we can help with rural. And it has, number one, increased attendance and also enrollment from those rural areas.
And that's, so just such a great example of what we do here.
Mhm.
And I love the attitude, why, not how we can't, but how we can, right? So it's just, instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry, we can't do that, we won't be able to provide that training, we say, wait a minute, how can we do this? And that's what we're good at here, is coming up with those solutions.
So RaeLyn, you were so right about that. And I as your person, Gary, that was like one of his big things, because whenever we ever mentioned, hey, I don't think he would always counter. He would always counter with, well, why not?
Right, exactly.
And it has pushed us. And again, because we've always had hey, let's figure out how to solve this problem. I think that it also has provided us access or endeared us to the other departments, especially the College of Technology, because a lot of times they will look towards us to aid them in certain like streaming or setting up classrooms, because a lot of times we've already overcome some of those barriers and difficulties.
Absolutely.
So did you guys hear the timer?
No, I didn't. Did it
No,
go off
did not.
already?
We're already.
One last question.
Yes,
for RaeLyn. RaeLyn, obviously in your new role as the interim director, we're all excited on this change. But what are you finding to be one of the greatest challenges of this new position?
I think probably just learning more about what each person does. And because, as a team, we were connected through huddles and that type of thing. So we kind of knew a little bit about what everybody did, but then diving into really the nuts and bolts of what everybody does on a day-to-day basis, trying to be connected in that, helping to be a support, finding that role, how to be supportive, is probably, I guess, a challenge, but a good challenge. Like I enjoy a good challenge. And so that's been actually quite rewarding for me to be able to get to know people a little bit better and get to know what their projects are and just how I can help. So that's
I'll tell you, I
Thank
had
you.
that conversation with RaeLyn yesterday about a grant that I want to work on. And she's like, it was big. And she goes, do you feel comfortable? I'm like, absolutely not. I do not. So, I reached out. She suggested I reach out to someone else on campus who is going to help support me through that process as we continue forward.
Excellent.
yes.
Well,
And I guess the other challenge is just working through all of Gary's notes, right? Like,
Yeah.
what did he mean by this?
I've seen Gary's
I don't
notes.
know.
Good luck.
Yeah, I love
Good
that guy.
luck.
And he's, I think, he really helped to elevate us to a place where we are today and help us to give us vision. And I just really hope that I can help to continue that vision and growth here in our department.
Excellent. Well, thank you
love
so
y'all.
much. Thanks for joining us today, RaeLyn. And for future podcasts, RaeLyn's going to be trying to join us as much as possible, taking over that podcast role as Gary whenever she can. So we look forward to you joining us for those future podcasts, RaeLyn. Angie, thank you so much as always. I do appreciate your support on these podcasts and setting everyone up. Angie does all the scheduling, and I would not be able to do this without her at all. And then if you, as the listener or viewer, would like to contact us about our offerings, you can visit our webpage at cetrain.isu.edu. You can email us at cetrain@isu.edu, or you can give us a call at 208-282-3372. And if you enjoy this podcast, please like, share, subscribe. That way we can get our message out to a larger community and they can learn about the offerings that we have. Thank you so much for joining us today, and be safe out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.